Hi everyone, my name is Linka and I live in Guinea, West Africa, and today I'm going to tell you about malaria. Unfortunately, I just got over a bout of really bad malaria, so it's pretty fresh in my mind. I'm just now starting to feel better, so let's see if we can answer some questions. Now, the most common types of malaria are falciparum and vivax. Now, falciparum is the most severe kind of malaria. Also happens to be the kind that I had just now. It's very severe because the symptoms are super strong. They come on strong and they really attack the body. Whereas Vivax tends to be a little bit less, of course, depending on the person. But the problem with Vivax is that it's reoccurring, so it can come back. So falciparum malaria usually attacks with a vengeance against those who don't have any kind of immunities at all, including babies, children, those with immunity problems like older people, pregnant people. With malaria, it comes on or it can come out when you are usually stressed, tired, or sick with something else. So you might know that this past week, couple weeks ago, I had an attack of endometriosis, which is a severe disease that caused bad problems for me. And so I was very, very run down. Now, when I had that attack of endometriosis, the first thing that I did was take a malaria test, and it tested negative. I was like, okay, this is endometriosis, nothing else. Okay, I can do this. So I got through that. I started to feel a little bit better after a while, after a long while. And I was like, okay, I'm stabilizing. And then all of a sudden, like my symptoms started to come back and I started to feel worse. And then I had new symptoms until I could not sleep during the night, and I just felt horrible. And I was just tossing and turning and sweating and getting a high fever. And so I got up that morning and I said, Peter, we need to do all the tests again. So we did everything that we had again, and this time it came up a very clear, very strong positive for falciparum. So now for Peter, he has the other kind of malaria, which is the Vivax, and that one can come back. It can stay in your body up to like 4 or 5 years. So that's right, one mosquito bite 5 years ago can make you sick dozens of times. Uh, it can be treated and it can be cured, but there's very specific treatment for it. So we are working on that for Peter. He is not cured. And part of the problem is that you can have both malarias at the same time. Also, these malarias can also turn into what's called cerebral malaria, where it actually passes the blood-brain barrier and attacks your brain. And that is a horrible thing. It's just as bad as it sounds. So some of the symptoms of malaria, how it happens, usually you start to feel off. You know, a couple of days before you feel off. You get like a weird moment of dizziness or a weird moment of nauseousness. You might remember on Monday I went to the market to buy fish and food for us, and I quickly walked across the street to get in front of traffic, and when I crossed the street, I felt really dizzy. So I actually ended up calling Peter, who was waiting for me on the other side of the street, and I said, Peter, you need to come because I crossed the street, I feel dizzy, and I'm gonna get the fish, but I don't think I can carry that 20 pounds of fish and chicken to come back. And so he came over and got me and took the fish and everything. So I was really dizzy. I came home, I stayed in bed the rest of the day, feeling pretty miserable, but no fever. And so I thought, okay, maybe this is just the end of my endometriosis, and I just gotta rest and take it easy. Going to the market was too much. The thing with malaria is that it goes and it comes back. A lot of times in the morning, you'll feel fine, and in the evenings, that illness will attack you again, that fever will come back. So one of the main symptoms of malaria is super high fever. It usually starts with chills. You're like super cold, freezing. Even if it's like 100 degrees out, you are cold, cold, cold. Your body has strong chills. You cannot stop shivering. So of course you like, something's wrong. You layer stuff on. You're like under the blankets, and then after a little while you get super, super hot, and like you feel 1,000,000 degrees, and you just start pouring sweat, pouring sweat. And then 30 minutes, an hour later, it starts over again. You get the super chills, and then you get that high fever, and then you get that sweating and this horrible feeling. So of course with chills and fever, you get that achiness, that really icky all over feeling. You know, every person is different, and it seems like every time you get malaria, it's slightly different, although a lot of things are similar. Peter gets a lot of that nauseousness, stomach, diarrhea issues. So it's really hard for him to eat. And of course, if he doesn't eat, he's a thin person, so he doesn't have any energy, and it's very difficult for him in that way. Um, this time I started out with nauseousness, but it didn't last too long. Uh, I was able to eat, but I couldn't eat that much. Like I would eat just a little tiny bit, and then it just like, it was repulsive to me. So there's a lot of different symptoms. A lot of times headache is accompanied with the malaria. Very, very strong headache usually. So this pounding headache that just does not go away. No rest from this headache. And that can be really, really tough. It's really, really tiring, because even when you're sleeping, you've got this pounding headache, and it just feels horrible, horrible. And then of course, if you know you have fever and a headache, your body just aches all over. And I mean, like, you are weak and just so, so horrible. I couldn't even sit up out of bed. I know the first time we had malaria, it was so tough on us. The second time Peter and I both had malaria, we had very similar symptoms. It was super, super high fever, super horrible headache, and your ears start ringing. And both of us said that you just, a few times we would like snap our fingers by our ears to see maybe like, did I go deaf? Can I still hear anything? And there's a light sensitivity a lot of times. That could even be part of the anemia, so it destroys your red blood cells, so you can get short of breath, heart palpitations, kind of coughing when you take a deep breath. I'm still getting that now even. And because anemia is something that takes a long time to regulate, we'll be feeling the effects of that for like 3 or 4 months at least before your body can recuperate those red blood cells. So that means extra cold feet and hands, tiredness, shortness of breath, ringing in the ears, light sensitivity, and who knows what other things come with just the anemia part of it itself. So we try to combat that right away. We try to take iron, B12, folic acid. Try to stay hydrated. That's one of the best things to do. Try to keep our electrolytes up, especially if you're vomiting, which is very common. And try to rest. I mean, that's the only thing you can do. You just you gotta lay there. I personally have this thing where when I'm very, very sick with a high fever, I start making like a whimpering noise. It's involuntary, I promise, but I think it's like breathing, and like almost like I'm forcing myself to breathe, like like that every breath. And so Peter says he knows that I'm really sick when that starts to happen. And so it's pretty tough because when you are under full attack of malaria, you can't do anything. I mean, going to the restroom is difficult. And you usually have to go to the restroom too because you usually have diarrhea. Flushing the toilet lever is too hard. It's like I don't have the force, I don't have the energy to put the toilet lever down. So it's difficult. It's difficult. So usually the only thing you can do, especially when it first comes on, is to stay in bed and rest. And the best thing to do when you get sick is to start treatment early, because if you start treatment early, it'll be over early. But sometimes you can get a false negative, or you can think that it's another thing. Like for me this week, I tested early and it was negative. So I definitely had an endometriosis thing going on. And then I got sick with malaria. So I'm thinking that it like stressed my body so much that it allowed the malaria to come out. So because I was still focused on endometriosis and I didn't think I had malaria, I didn't test again for a very long time. So I think I let it go a little too far, and that's when it gets really bad. So it was a really tough couple of weeks. The good news is that the treatment does start to work fairly well. Some of the treatments are really, really strong. They can make you dizzy, they can make you vomit, they can make you have diarrhea on top of everything else. Some of it is not too bad. Right now I do have a medication. It's usually 3 or 4 days treatment. And I have this medication that is very mild on the stomach and fast acting. So you actually take all 4 pills every day at one time. So I have to take my medicine after I finish this video. So usually by the second day you start to feel better. And I definitely feel so much better. I could not even sit up, yesterday. So this is definitely an improvement. So I know everyone's asking, well, isn't there a vaccine? There is currently no actual vaccine for malaria that is being in use right now. There is a vaccine that has been created and it's under trials, but it's being tested only in a couple of countries, I think Congo and Kenya, and it's only being tested for those at high risk, young children, babies, toddlers, pregnant women. I don't even think they're doing pregnant women yet, but so it would be a very long time before that vaccine would be available to us here in Guinea. I'm guessing probably like 10 years probably before it actually works. And even then, that vaccine is only effective in about 30% of people. So I mean, that's a really low percentage, but for those 30% of people, I mean, that makes a difference. If I had a 30% chance of not getting malaria, I would take it. I'd be like, yeah, I don't want to have malaria ever again. So now it's spread only with mosquitoes. So a mosquito has to bite someone that has malaria and then bite you. So it's pretty like a weird combination. Like, how does that even happen? Now we try our best not to get bit by mosquitoes, but we're in Africa. It is gonna happen. We sleep under a mosquito net every night. We try to use anti-mosquito spray. We've got nets and screens on our windows and doors. It's just hard to avoid. It's really, really hard to avoid. One thing that's really helped is our air conditioning, because if we have air conditioning, it brings that humidity level down, and the mosquitoes don't like that. So we've seen a drastic drop in mosquitoes, but they're not completely gone. So we still get bit, but like I said, it can sometimes you can get a malaria outbreak as soon as like 10 days after you've been bit, or up to like a year for falciparum. But for the VVAX, it can be up to like 4 or 5 years. So like one mosquito 5 years ago bit me, and now I've got malaria. It's impossible to avoid, especially when you have sweet blood like I do, and apparently mosquitoes love me. So I do get bit. I do get bit. Yeah. I haven't had malaria for a while. I'm trying to remember. I think it's been. I think, if I remember right, I think it was 2019. I think it was 2019. Maybe it was 2020. I know in 2020, Peter had malaria a lot. So focused on him. It's kind of hard to remember when I had it because I mean, he was sick so much. But now when you get malaria normally, you also get some antibodies. Your body knows how to fight against it. So normally I won't get malaria again for maybe like a year or two. So that would be great if that's what happens. Now with Peter, he doesn't get that kind of antibodies, and it lives in his liver, and it can come out pretty much at any time. And usually it's like on a schedule, like every 6 weeks it'll come back. And that's why he keeps having that recurring infection. And I keep saying, Peter's sick again, Peter's sick. Now, the kind he has, VVAX, is supposed to be less serious. And he does have some times where it's very mild, but it also has been very serious at times, including last year when we took him to the emergency room. Well, I say the emergency room. We took him to the hospital here in Guinea. Now, it's called a hospital, but it's not really a hospital. Like, there's no running water. The doctors and nurses don't wash their hands. There's no electricity. There might be electricity now. They're just installing electricity in the city, so maybe there's electricity now. You go in and there is like blood on the walls, bodily fluids. You're supposed to bring your own sheets. You're supposed to bring your own mosquito nets. You're supposed to bring your own drinking water. If you want your doctor to wear gloves, you're supposed to bring them yourself. If you need a procedure like stitches or something surgical, you provide the needle and thread and scalpel and whatever else. So, in any case, that was a crazy experience taking Peter to the hospital. But he was so sick that time that I felt that we needed to do anything that we could. I didn't want to say like, okay, we didn't go to the hospital and something bad happened. So we went to the hospital, and I don't necessarily know if that helped him at all. But obviously he got through that bout of malaria. I don't know if I would ever go to the hospital again. I was even kind of considering it the day before yesterday. I was feeling so sick. I was like, okay, what do I do? Do I go to the hospital? But at that point, I had already started my treatment, and there was pretty much nothing else that they could do at the hospital. So, why am I going to go get into that germ-infested place where I would be totally uncomfortable and totally not in a healing environment, I guess you can say. Anyways, today I am feeling better. I've been able to eat, like I said, small portions. Peter made me some homemade chicken soup. Also had some chips and tomato pico de gallo. That was pretty good with lots of garlic. Also some 100% fruit juice. And just trying to eat little things, some cashew nuts and almond nuts to try to keep my energy level up. Bananas, anything that my stomach can handle. That's what I'm trying to do. I expect now to be on the way up. I actually feel pretty good. Like I've been walking around the house today. I'm going to be tired and weak probably for the next couple of weeks, but I should feel okay. I'm considering even going out for my appointments this afternoon. We'll see how that goes. I don't want to push it too much, but at the same time, I hate missing all my student appointments. So that's what it is. Now, when you take this medication, you can cure malaria 100%. So hopefully it will not come back for a very long time. Peter's is not cured. We are still working on that. And he hasn't had a bout for 6 weeks. So hopefully the stress and everything doesn't bring one out now. One thing is that he's really, really compassionate, because every time he's sick, I take care of him. And, I'm the nurse by his side every moment of the day. And so when I'm sick, he does return the favor, and I really appreciate it. So he takes care of cooking, cleaning, medication, helping me do everything, and taking care of the animals and everything. And my animals are always very close to me. Simba stays next to me. The dog and the cats usually snuggle up to me. And that's pretty much how malaria is. Hopefully, we'll have a complete eradication of malaria in the near future. I hope I was able to answer some of your questions, and I hope that you never get malaria, because it is a horrible, horrible disease. I was looking at the CDC website, and I think it said that there was about 600,000 cases of malaria last year estimated, and there were so many people who died from malaria. Mostly children, which is horrible. And when we had malaria, we could understand, now of course we know why these children are dying, because it's a horrible disease that just knocks you out completely. It's like you cannot do anything. Like breathing is hard. So we just do what we can for now. Stay away from the mosquitoes. And hopefully one day we won't have to deal with all of this anymore. All right. Thanks, everyone. That's it from Guinea, West Africa. Bye.